Hey there, everybody. This is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series, and I am yours truly, Dr. Argie. I am the founder and CEO of Faith Inc., that stands for Family and Individual Therapeutic Healing, and co-founder and CEO of Connections Matter LLC with my husband, Morgan E. Wilson Jr. We bring you content every day in some kind of way. We're bringing you trending topics and juicy stories, and yes, even hard and courageous conversations, because we believe that courageous conversations connect. So tonight is no different. This is Mindful Mondays. You all know how it goes. It's Mindful Mondays, then we're Testimonial Tuesdays, then we're WIOW, Work It Out Wednesdays. We then begin to round out the week with Thoughtful Thursdays, which it seems like you guys love because it sounds like it's trending, so thank you for that. And then Freedom Fridays. And sometimes on the weekend, I kind of give you a flavor of what's going on. You know, Morgan and I have been doing the date night drive, but because we were traveling and then we came back and my father was sick, we kind of got off kilter. Didn't mean we didn't have a date night. We just kind of were flying by the seat of our pants. But we're going to get back. Yeah, we took a little bit of chill pill, Morgan said. But we're going to get back to the date night drive. So I'm asking, you all know I ask one thing of you. If you believe that this content is helpful to others, I ask you to get on the phone or text someone and say the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series is on. It's Mindful Mondays. I ask you to STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. Share, please. And because that's how we let other people know that this is the stuff that we're doing that matters, right? And this, as I always say, is not a monologue, it is a dialogue. We're having a conversation. And again, tonight is no different. So we're going to have a conversation. If you guys are listening in, sometimes people listen in and they don't comment, but I like you to comment so we can engage. Send me some smiley faces, some thumbs up, some hearts. Michael Burke is on. Hey, Michael, how are you? Thanks for joining the show. Nicole's on. Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining the show. Patrice is on. Hey, Patrice, thanks for joining the show, guys. Again, let other people know that we're on. We started, by the way, this is summer, so we started coming on a little bit later. We're coming on somewhere between 8:15 and 8:30 because we realized that it's light out, so people are out a little bit longer and people want to kind of, get their tasks done after work and things like that. Good evening, Patrice. It's so good to see you on the show. I hope you're doing well. I hope your recovery is going well. I'm sending light and love your way always. So we're starting a little bit lower, and there's a few things that I want to little bit later. Lower. You guys, you got to forgive me. I'm a little bit tired. I got to tell you about this interesting wedding. Is not a wedding. I have to tell you what Morgan and I did today. So I'm a little bit tired. But a couple of things I want you to do. I want you to look out for our YouTube page. We've got two YouTube pages: the Connections Matter TV YouTube page and the Ask Dr. Argie YouTube page. And so we're going to be putting a lot of content on those pages. Also look out for me on the Today Show on July 2nd. I think I'm going to be in the 8 o'clock hour, and I'm going to be talking about gaming addiction, right? Because the World Health Organization has classified gaming as a disorder and as an addiction. So we want to really talk about what is an addiction, what is not addiction, what do you need to look out for if it's your partner or if it's your child or someone that you love. So look out for that. Also, we're going to be doing some blogging. Look out for that. Check out our website. We've got a new kind of facelift at drargieconnects.com. And also Reentry Point. Look out. We're doing a casting call for Reentry Point. We kind of needed to step back and really revise some of the things we were doing to make sure that we are putting out excellent content in this project. So I'm really, really excited about it. It's called Reentry Point. It's really interesting because yesterday I was at my parents' house on Father's Day. By the way, I didn't say, Michael, happy Father's Day, and whoever else is on that are fathers. We're going to be talking about that tonight. I was watching TV, and they were talking about I put it on my phone, a new procedure that they're doing for post-traumatic stress disorder. And they were talking about all the military soldiers that are coming home. It's called SGD, Staglet ganglion block. Anybody know what that's about? It's called Staglet ganglion block. It's a new procedure for those who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's right in line with some of the stuff that we're actually doing with our reentry point, not just people coming home from the service, but reentry point is about anyone who's reentering the system or exiting the system. Because we believe that oftentimes when we're reentering systems, it creates disruption in the family, and we're going to be talking about that. So think about a cross between, I guess, Ayanla Fix My Life and Dr. Phil, who I absolutely love and adore because you learn something every time you watch him. We may be at a house, I may be going to their house, but we're going to be talking about how do I give them the tools, the skills, and the support in order to re-enter their family system. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. I hope that you guys will tune in. We're hoping to have a launch date for those episodes by the end of the summer. We'll give you the date of that. Hey, Nicole, my beautiful niece Nicole is on, and she's kind of chilling out now that she's finished her 7th year teaching. Woo-hoo! Congratulations, Nicole. 7 years as a teacher. Can you believe it? That means Auntie Argie is getting old. That is what that means. Hey, Lisa. Lisa's on. Thanks for joining the show. If you're just hopping on, this is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connects series, and this is Mindful Mondays. So keep in mind, all month we usually have a theme. So this month's theme, because it's June and many people are transitioning, we're entitling it Transitions That Change Our Lives Permanently. And that could be anything. It could be, in a couple of days, last couple of weeks, we're talking about death, divorce, disaster, but it also could be graduations. It could be transitions of a new job. It could be a new baby. It could be that you buy a new house. It could be a lot of different changes. It could be somebody gets chronically ill. It could be an addiction. There are a lot of transitions that change our lives permanently. And what I thought would be, hey Swift, thanks for joining the show. What I thought we would talk about, since it's post Father's Day, right? It's the day after Father's Day. I hope that the fathers, happy Father's Day for all the fathers that are listening. I hope that you had a wonderful Father's Day. Morgan and I went to church. Pastor preached an awesome service, faithful fatherhood. I think that was what the title was. And I started thinking about that. So let me reverberate back. I said I was going to tell you all what our day was like, what we did today. We went to This Is Not a Wedding, right? So I don't know if you guys know Envy McKee. She's on WURD, but we became friends when I was doing Radio 1 a whole lot. Phyllis is on. Hey, Phyllis, thanks for joining the show. So Envy McKee had a ceremony, and it was a garden party. And she said, come. This is my ceremony between myself and my life partner. His name is Friedman, what they call him Free. So it's Envy and Free. And I said I would do the hashtag. She asked to do the hashtag It Is Not a Wedding and a hashtag Envy and Free or something like that. It was really interesting because you had to kind of wear it. This is why I have my little son maxi dress on. And it wasn't the traditional wedding that we normally look for, right? It was sweet and quaint. It was in the park, and there were what was the thing, babe, on those things that were on the top of the roof. Oh, yeah, it was lanterns or something like that. Lanterns, and we forgot to bring the food. They had herbs on the tables. It was just very, very quaint and very outdoorsy. Yeah, thank goodness it didn't rain. However, I started thinking about when people first get married and what happens. And I thought that we would talk about divorce tonight as one of the transitions, because as I was thinking about Father's Day, I realized that we live in a world where people come together and unfortunately they plan the wedding, but they do not often plan the marriage. And even at this ceremony today with NOV and Free, they were speaking to each other, but not to the audience, as we were just kind of bystanders. So we really couldn't hear what they were saying. I thought that was kind of awesome because it was like, this is between the two of them. And they did have their exchange of rings. And I thought, again, how many weddings do I go to? Or how many weddings, ask yourself the question, do you go to And within, say, a couple of years, you find out that those people are no longer married and they are now divorced. These days, there is an increase in divorce. Marriages aren't lasting as long as they used to. People used to work at it harder because it is work. Newsflash, marriage is work. It is a wonderful institution, but it is work. It requires, and none of us, by the way, would go on our jobs or go for a job interview and say, I'm lazy, I don't want to work, I'm not a team player, I don't like to be innovative, I don't really even like to learn new things, and I'm not really going to be very compliant with the rules and regulations or the policies and procedures of this place of employment. And then say, please hire me and then pay me. Nobody would do that. But interesting enough, sometimes we fall in love and we get into a long-term relationship that turns into a marriage, and then we kind of lose our zeal. We tend not to sometimes go on our date nights. You all know Morgan and I will protect date night fiercely. We have to kind of continue to do some of the things that we did when we were in the dating process. And then you have to communicate. Again, courageous conversations connect. So as we think about post-Father's Day, right? And again, anybody that's just hopping on, Lawrence, thanks for joining the show. Charles is on. Happy belated Father's Day to you guys. As we think about that, I want us to think about how it is that when we go into a marriage, if it does end, Lord forbid, if it does end in divorce, and if you do have children, right? Here's my pet peeve. Can you figure out a way? Can you and your spouse or your ex-spouse figure out a way to not triangulate your children, not have them in the middle, and figure out a way to co-parent your child with all the love and the adoration and the guidance and the direction and the parenting and the rearing that they deserve from both parents? You made, hopefully, that child out of love together, hopefully, and you need to be parenting them. So just because you didn't make it as a couple doesn't mean that you can't win and make it as parents. And why do your children have to suffer because you all, as adults, can't figure it out? I think that's a drop the mic moment, right? I want to say that again. Why do your children have to suffer by being triangulated and being made to feel that they have to choose between one parent versus the other when they didn't choose for you not to make it? And ultimately, you all are the adults. So let's unpack that. Let's talk about that. For those of you who, hey, Kim's on. Thanks for joining the show, Kim. This is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. We're talking on Mindful Mondays about transitions, right? Transitions that change our lives permanently. And the one transition we're talking about tonight is we're talking about divorce, right? That is a huge transition. And you all know, as a family therapist, by the way, if you all know anybody that's interested in family therapy, I am actively practicing at 5398 Wynnefield Avenue. We have a beautiful suite in the heart of Wynnefield, right near St. Joe's University and City Line Avenue. I'm there every day, with the exception of usually Fridays. I also am there on Saturdays. I have Saturday hours. I have evening hours. And I work with individuals, couples, and families from the ages of 8 on up to 98. It doesn't matter to me. And I love actually working with the various life cycle stages. And quite frankly, you all know I do see a lot of blended families. I see a lot of children that are injured because their parents can't sometimes figure it out. And children have told me, by the way, that they'd rather be from a broken home than living in one, right? What does that mean? That sometimes it's so contentious. It's so angry. There's so much divisiveness that they don't want to live in the household with those two parents. And so they'd rather, the parents go on a divorce if they can't get along, and then figure out a way to do what the children deserve, which is to co-parent their children. Michelle is on. Hey, Michelle, thanks for joining the show. Tracy's on. Hazel Ann is on. Thanks for joining the show. We are talking about transitions, and tonight on Mindful Mondays, it is Mindful Mondays. So I want us to, one, be grateful if you had a father that was wonderful to you and taught you what it meant to be a man, or taught you what it meant to have the first man love you as a woman or as a girl. And we need to honor them. And if your fathers weren't able to be there for you, all right, let's work on forgiving them, right? Why? Because forgiveness is not just for them to let them off the hook, but forgiveness is to free us from the toxic emotions that keep us bound, sometimes in bitterness. We don't want to be bitter. We want to be better, right? And if we're able to move towards forgiveness, which is a process, it does take time, but if we're able to move towards that, then we can release ourselves so that we can go on to live our best lives. You want to know the people that I know who have not embarked on the journey of forgiveness? It is the people who are still bitter and angry because they lost, and the people that are still holding their children hostage by making them feel like they have to choose between one parent versus the other. Those are people who have not forgiven themselves sometimes and not forgiven the other person. And guess what? Injuries happen. We live in a world sometimes that causes us to be in these intimate relationships. And sometimes, intimacy means intimacy. And when we're in these vulnerable relationships, we're susceptible to being hurt. It does happen. But the question is, and I see some thumbs up, so I appreciate that, the thumbs up and the hearts. Send me some hearts so I can know that I'm on the right track here, and some smiley faces. Sometimes what we need to do is we need to step back and we need to reevaluate. What are we doing, and how do we go on to live our absolute best lives in a phenomenal and an abundant way without holding on to the toxic emotions that keep us sick? Does that make sense to you guys? I hope it does, because this is very serious. I see this all the time. Hazel Ann says, good evening. Arnold's on. Hey, Arnold Jackson. Thanks for joining the show. Allison is on. Thanks for joining the show, Allison. We're saying, one, happy Father's Day. I'm going to keep saying that because I hope that you all had a wonderful Father's Day. But you dads, you have a lot to do with this, right? Because as fathers, the fathers have a huge impact on our communities. And quite frankly, I was in a meeting the other day, and it became very, very crystal clear that in that meeting, there, as we were talking about family dynamics, that many of the persons in the meeting had daddy issues, right? They had abandonment, because if you have daddy issues, ultimately, and the daddy issues meaning that the dad is either not around, or is not treating the mother well, or is not being able to be the impact, provide the impact that they need to provide, then sometimes what happens is that person then carries that emotional state of abandonment, of neglect, of void into the next relationship or the next stage of their lives. My Angela, what's Ayana Passan says that many of us, especially as women, I'm getting a little hot, so here's my little fan, y'all. Morgan should open the doors or the windows. I love my fan. My sister bought me this fan. You guys see my fan? She brought me this fan back from Paris, so I love it. Thank you, Kelly, for bringing my fan back from Paris. Ayana Fasant, who I think is going to be here in Philadelphia on Thursday. I wish I could. I'm going to be working, but I wish I could go see her. She said that many girls are either running away from their fathers, running towards their fathers, or emulating their fathers, right? Think about that. And that could be for boys as well, right? We're running away, we're running towards, or we're emulating. Running away meaning that we're moving away from what we saw, what was modeled for us that wasn't good. Emulating meaning maybe it was good and we're repeating it, we're emulating it, or it wasn't good and we're repeating that. Or we're running towards, meaning we're trying to run towards that which was good or what we received as good. Marcia is on. Hey, Marcia. Deanna is on. Melvin's on. Hey, Melvin. Thanks for joining the show. Kwanzaa is on. So I asked you guys, the ones that just hopped on, to share. We say STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. Tell me what your thoughts are thus far about what we're talking about. We're talking about transitions, right? And as it relates to transitions, we're talking about the transition of divorce that has the potential to change our lives permanently. Morgan and I went to a ceremony today. It was in Bucks County. It was lovely. It was very pure, and it was in the park. And it caused me to think about the number of weddings that I will go to in this season, and how many of those weddings will survive. How many of those weddings will, stand the test of time, and then how many will be shortened because people have done their due diligence to plan the wedding, but not their due diligence to plan the marriage, right? Because marriage is work. It requires a whole lot of our energy. It requires a lot of our skill. And quite frankly, if we don't have the skills and the tools in our toolbox to handle an in-depth, deep, intimate relationship, hopefully that's authentic, then sometimes we fail because we don't have what it takes, or we haven't gained the courage to go out there and ask for someone to support us, someone like a therapist or a spiritual advisor or a coach. We all need some help sometimes, because in our families of origin, and you all have heard me say this before, our family of origin, we call it the FU, impacts us longer, more deeply, more frequently, and more powerfully than any other entity in our lives. So, excuse me, if you want to know why you do something, why we're doing what we're doing, why we ended up in the relationships that we ended up in, then Morgan said, why we keep choosing the same fools. That's not a nice term, babe. All the time. Or I would say why you continue to choose the same partner. They just have a different name, but they're the same person. That would suggest that you might have some issues. If you always, and this is interesting enough that it happened to me years ago before I got married, I would often find people who didn't, they had commitment issues. And I had to really unpack why it was that I sort of found these persons that had commitment issues like a needle in a haystack, and try to unpack that so I wouldn't continue to repeat that cycle. For many of us, we do find or search out a partner like a needle in a haystack, and usually it's the person that we choose that we are trying to work out our mother or our father issues or our significant other issues, whomever we had conflict with during our rearing process. That person, if we haven't really reconciled those issues, then we just find somebody that is just like them, and then we try to work it out with them. The problem is it doesn't work like that, right? We can't work out our past issues with our present persons. What that looks like is that we're then trying to get somebody to cash the check that they didn't write. And that's true. It's just true. How many of you all have felt like you were in a relationship and somebody wanted you to cash a check that you didn't write, right? That they were blaming you for the sins of someone else in the past that you had nothing to do with, whether it would be a parent or a partner. And unfortunately, we then go down the path of being married sometimes with those persons and having children with those persons. And then it doesn't work out, right? And then what happens? I see some hearts, so I must be touching on something right here. Thumbs up, smiley faces, hearts. Yes, please, guys, share this with others. Share. If you like this, then invite people to like the page, tag them. I say STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. And if this is hitting home, if you know someone, if you've ever been in a relationship, there was somebody else who was projecting on you or blaming you for something that you had nothing to do with, or if you've ever been in a blended family, whether you were the child or whether you were the adult, in a blended family scenario where you felt triangulated or trapped in between adults that couldn't figure out how to co-parent, and then as a result, you ended up paying the price, give me some thumbs up with that and tell me what you did. And I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what your thoughts are with regards to how you made it out sane. Because I got to tell you, I work a lot of times with children, and they're cashing the checks that they didn't write, right? The kids, they're the ones that are paying the price because these parents can't figure it out. Either one or both of them can't figure out how to love their child, to raise their child, to guide their child, to nurture their child. They made it that child in love, and yet they cannot figure out what to do post-divorce to make sure that that child has everything that they need, desire, and deserve. And I want to go for a moment into, since we do have quite a few males on here, and I want to give you all a shout out, happy post-Father's Day. I hope you had a wonderful Father's Day. Simi's on. Hey, Simi. Don is on. Hey, thanks for joining the show. Don. Quanda said he is right. I think he was talking about what you were saying. Yeah, about the fools. Dr. Gale is on. Hey, he just got back from CPR training. Thanks for joining the show, Gail. Arlie is on. So I want to ask you guys to comment on if you've ever been in a situation, because we're talking about transitions and how to work through transitions, how to get to the other side healthy. Have you ever been the victim, I would say, of two adults who couldn't figure it out in a blended family situation post-divorce? For the guys, then Father's Day just occurred, and we know we don't do nearly enough for Father's Day. We know we need to get ourselves together for these good fathers who are out there doing the darn thing and taking care of their families and doing the best that they can. It's a shame that we go in a card store and we see so many cards for Mother's Day, and then there's a little section for fathers, right? And you all matter. Dads matter. So on post-Father's Day, it's Monday, I wonder if anyone can comment on if they've ever been in a situation as dads where, because they've chosen to move on with their lives, or they might have been in a toxic relationship or just wasn't a healthy one, and once they chose to move on, then all hell broke loose, right? And oftentimes, and I will say this because I am not a biological mother, but I do consider myself a bonus mother because I got married to this lovely dude over here, and Morgan had children or has children, and so I became the bonus mom. And I have some healthy relationships with my bonus children. But I also would say, with regards to what does happen and what I see in the practice, is that sometimes the parent who feels like they were left, or they feel like they were dismissed, or they just feel like they lost out on that relationship, often begins to use the child as a pawn in order to hurt that parent, because they don't feel like they have any other choice. And I would submit to you, if you are a male or if you are a female, I am asking, quite frankly, begging you guys, don't do that. Don't use your children and hurt them and their parent in the process just because you're hurt. There is a saying. It goes like this. It's very simple. Hurt people, what? Hurt people. Hurt people, hurt people. But hurt people don't have to hurt people. Hurt people can heal people. Hurt people can heal. However, what is necessary in order to be healed from an injury is to do the work. Do your work. Set yourself free. Be your own rescue. Do the necessary work to heal yourself from the inside out. If you're a believer like me, it's always with God's help. But still, at the end of the day, nobody is responsible for your happiness but yourself. Happiness is based on what's happening, but there's also this joy that comes on the inside that nobody can give to you. And yes, I absolutely know that relationships are very, very difficult. And when they end, they can be devastating. But you can recover. And you can recover in such a way that, quite frankly, your children end up benefiting from you and your partner getting along and figuring out a way to do that in a healthy way. Derek's on. I see some. Nicole has a comment. Can you talk about the signs pre-marriage of someone who is not over their pain of their previous marriage and spouse, particularly the subtleties that might be overlooked? Oh, I love that. I love that. Absolutely, Nicole. I want to just make sure that I get everybody else. Derek's on. Celeste is on. Thanks for joining the show, guys. Anthony and Laurel Nucci are on. Colette is on. William is on as well. Okay, great. So I'm going to repeat this because Nicole, and then Colette said they are struggling with self-love. Absolutely. So let me repeat this question because I think it's a really good question. Nicole wants me to talk about the signs pre-marriage of someone who's not over their pain of their previous marriage or spouse, particularly the subtleties that might be overlooked. So first, I would say that, interestingly enough, I think that what happens is when we're in the courtship phase, people are having so much fun that they don't want to go deep, right? They don't want to ask deeper questions. And I understand that because you're having a good time. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to get to know the person. But I will say, bruh, sis, you can't afford not to ask the deeper questions. You have to find ways to have the courageous conversation. And especially if the person you are dating pre-marriage or planning on marrying has had a previous relationship, a previous marriage, and a previous injury, you cannot afford not to. Here are some of the signs that you can look for, right? If the person, like, you know how they say, if you're not over your ex, you can't move on to your next, right? So if the person is incessantly talking about your ex all the time, that's a sign. If the person, I'm not saying they shouldn't ever talk about them, because sometimes it's relevant, especially if they have kids, and sometimes you may end up being the person that is, comforting to them. So that's so fine to talk about them, but if they can't stop talking about that person, if that person is continually engaging with their ex in a toxic way over the child, meaning that they're reacting over and over and over again, they're texting, they're engaging in what I tend to call emotional and verbal violence. I want y'all to write that down, because that is the thing that continues to be overlooked. So nobody's coming to your door and punching you out, right? But it's the person who is insidious with their toxic verbal commentary via text. And text and the computer can be lethal, right? Because you get to kind of be big and bad behind the screen or behind your phone and say a whole lot of things that you might not necessarily say in person. So if the person that you're dating is in a war, a verbal and emotional, sometimes intellectual war with their previous husband or wife, that is a sign. Because really, if they don't care, here's something, and I think Pastor Waller said it. He said it to the guys, but I think it's relevant for women and for men. If there is no reaction, right, then that is an indicator that the person more than likely has moved on. But if the reaction is like a tsunami, you can best assure that there's still work to be done, and that person is still embedded or entangled in that relationship in a way that probably is not healthy. I suggest, of course, I'm always going to suggest that you seek counsel, go to your spiritual advisor, seek therapy. You can do that individually or conjoint as a couple, but really process out some of the injury, because those wounds are deep usually. And when they are unable to be addressed, if you're not able to really process them, then they just stay stagnant, and they are bound to come out in one way or another. Okay. And then the third thing that I want you to pay attention to is if, again, I use this term a lot, cashing the check that you didn't write. So if you're the person that you're dating is starting to project onto you as if you're doing the things that they experienced in their previous relationship, but you're not doing those things, then that is an indicator that they really haven't resolved those things from the previous relationship, and now they're projecting them onto you. None of that is good. None of that is healthy. And quite frankly, I would say to any couple, before you walk down that aisle, go to therapy, do the premarital counseling, address the issues in the therapy in a safe and productive environment, so that you can develop the skills and the tools that you need in order to move into a healthy relationship. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It means that you still have work to do. I hope that is helpful. And let's see who else is on and who has. Okay, great. Cornelius is on. Hey, Will's on. Thanks for joining the show, Will. Tracy says, and William's on as well. I will do that, babe. I will, babe. Tracy says, it's worse when both parents can't figure it out. Most kids suffer also, not just from divorce, but from parents who were not ready for kids. Great topic. Okay, I'm going to address that too. But Nicole, please let me know if that was helpful. I have some other thoughts about that too that we can get into a dialogue about, because I do think that we you have to have these courageous conversations that help you to connect. But if you're unable to, then there's some techniques that I can teach people in order to move the needle with regards to helping them to open up and develop deeper conversations. As far as it's worse when both parents can't figure it out, absolutely. Well, I think it's bad either way. I think it's bad when both parents can't figure it out, and I think it's bad when one parent can't figure it out, because it takes two to tango, right? So if one parent can't figure it out, then they make it worse for the other person. And it's unfortunate, because there are some real good examples of where people can do well. And studies show that children thrive. They don't just survive post-divorce. Children actually thrive when both parents are able to sit down in a healthy way, talk to them about the transition of divorce, ask open-ended questions, let their children ask them questions, and then share with their children that it's not them that caused this. Because sometimes children will think that it's them that caused this divorce. So you need to really make sure your children understand that they didn't do anything. All they did was be a kid, and that it's your responsibility, both as mother and father, to love them, to support them, to nurture them, to figure it out and do it effectively, so that they have everything that they need in order to be launched into adulthood. And that if you can do that, and you can demonstrate to your children that the only thing that's going to change is that things are going to get better, because your parents now have an avenue or a pathway to parent them effectively and not get caught up in the negative interaction and energy between the two of them. That's how it works, and it's phenomenal. I guarantee you, it is phenomenal. But when, and I use this term very succinctly, when the emotional and verbal violence gets in the way, then it disrupts the atmosphere and the energy, and it moves the humans, the people, the parents, to a place sometimes that can be at the point of no return. Y'all know what happens when you start saying stuff that you have no business saying, and then you can't take it back. Studies show that you can say one negative thing, and it takes 10, for one infraction, it takes 10 positive interactions in order to nullify that particular negative interaction, right? So if you're saying unkind things all the time, if you're writing unkind text all the time, then you're building up this arsenal that sometimes you can't recover from. And the children are just suffering because of it. And it's unfair, it's unhealthy. Quite frankly, I believe it's immoral. And I say to parents, if you can't figure it out, there's no shame in being hurt. The shame is not accessing the resources to help you to work through your pain and your injury, because I guarantee you there's power on the other side of it. And with the power that's on the other side of it, then you can show your children that you can do this. Parents can figure out how to love them and give them everything they need, even if they did not work out as a couple. Anthony's on. Thanks for joining, Anthony. Oh, okay. Hey, Anthony, thanks for joining the show all the way from California. Alima's on. Amina's on. Thanks for joining the show, guys. Let's see what comes. I think Dr. Gail said something. Jermaine. Hey, Jermaine. I didn't see him. Thanks for joining the show. Oh, I see. I see. Hey, Jermaine. It was great seeing you at church yesterday, girl. Dr. Gail says children can think it caused the separation. It is imperative that both parents avoid negative criticism and derogatory comments within hearing range of children. That's an excellent comment, Dr. Gail. I want to hear from some of you, from others as well, with regards to what Dr. Gail just said. Sometimes parents will tell me when they're arguing, I'll say, where were the children? Well, first of all, in therapy, when I do therapy with parents, especially high-risk situations like that, when parents are not getting along, or if I'm doing couples therapy, even if I'm doing co-parenting therapy, I always ask parents to bring in the pictures of their children. I want them to do that because I want them to know that their children are a very constant present in this therapeutic intervention. and that it's not just about them, but it's also about the children who I may never meet, but I'm serving as an advocate for them while working with their parents. As far as parents who say that their children don't hear them, they do. Trust me and believe me, because they come into my office and they tell me. So don't think that you're going to be arguing in the house and your children don't hear you. Don't think that you're going, and even if you're not arguing, got you. I got you, babe. I got you. Or just talking to someone, anyone, about the mother or the father. I know it's not healthy. I know that children usually are hurt by it, even if they don't say that they are. And no matter how old they are, listen. When my parents and they loved each other and they were together for 60 years, right? But sometimes they didn't get along. And when I became an adult, sometimes my dad would say little things about my mom, or my mom would say little things about my dad. I didn't want to hear it then. And I was 40-something years old. And I was like, if y'all can't figure it out, then y'all need to go to a different therapist. And then they were like, well, you are our therapist. I'm like, I can't be your therapist because I'm your daughter. So if you're 40 or 50 years old and you don't want to hear negative commentary or derogatory comments, or about the child's parent, then you know the children don't want to hear it, and they don't deserve to hear it, quite frankly. So Dr. Gail, you're absolutely right. Really try to be the better parent, like the better person. Try to, in essence of trying to be the better parent or person, also figure out a way to make sure that your children are living in an environment that is inviting and nurturing and not a hostile environment. Nicole's on. Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining the show. So tell me what your thoughts are. I'm curious. I see. Hopefully Minister Will is still on. I know that he does some counseling and he deals with sometimes people at end of life. We haven't gotten to that. Well, last week we talked about that a little bit, but I really do think that this is an important conversation. When I thought about Father's Day yesterday, and I thought about all the fathers, quite frankly, that are disengaged with their children for no other reason but because they made a decision to move on with their lives and not be in the marriage or in the relationship with the mother. Sis, just because the guy left you doesn't mean that he left your children. That he may be a great parent. Maybe he just wasn't a great partner, or maybe you all just couldn't figure it out for whatever reason. But that is no reason to then cut the ties between your children and their father. Figure it out. And by the way, there are multiple forms of commerce. I want you all to think about that. There are multiple forms of commerce, right? So let's say the dad is, or the mom, whoever it is not able to do the financial responsibility as you would like, then the physical responsibility, the intellectual responsibility, the spiritual responsibility, the relational responsibility, growing up a human being and developing them so that you can launch them into adulthood requires a holistic approach with all kinds of comprehensive areas that you need to begin to, take to task and teach your child. There are teachable moments in every area that you can possibly think of. So there are multiple ways, many ways, right? Mammoth ways, quite frankly, to begin to invest in your children. And we need the village. That's everybody. By the way, for those families that divorce, it's very, very difficult to sever ties. Divorcing, you all see this necklace that I have? Think about the divorce as, I got this necklace all tangled up. Well, I don't want to do it because I like it, so I don't want to mess it up. But think about if I tangled it all up, and then it was all these small tangles, and then I started trying to untangle it. That's how divorces are. They're messy, and it's hard to untangle them. And sometimes if I decided, like, I got frustrated and I just broke it apart, then what would happen? It would be disruptive. It would not be efficient. My necklace would be broken. Sometimes you have to use your time and energy, and you need to be gentle with the whole process as it begins to unfold in order, quite frankly, to do it in the healthiest and most efficient way so that the children don't suffer because of it. Does that make sense, guys? And so divorce, when we talk about transition, right, we know that nobody, I don't know about y'all, but this is true for me, and I haven't said this in a minute, so share, please, and STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. Let other people know we're on and we're talking about this particular topic. I think this is an important topic when we're thinking about transition, especially since the divorce rate is going up. I want to make a comment about trying your darndest not to get to that big D, the divorce, right? I tend to think that these days, perhaps one of the reasons why divorce is elevating and the numbers are, staggering is because we run to the divorce lawyers too quickly. Do the work. If you're having challenges and you planned the wedding but not the marriage, and you realize now you haven't discussed finances, you realize you haven't discussed religion, you realize you haven't discussed how you're going to rear your children, you realize you haven't discussed the rules of engagement or what the distribution of labor is going to be. You realize you didn't really discuss how you're going to engage with your in-laws or what it's going to look like in terms of your friendships. Those are all things that need to be addressed. And if you realize after you've gotten married that these are the things that you need to address, do it. Don't get into the first big argument and then say it's over. And by the way, having one foot in and one foot out is not a good way to maintain a marriage, right? You need to try to be in it to win it as best you can, and then seek good counsel in the way of couples therapy, if you can, to really help you to unpack all the issues that you may have, or that possibly all the bags, quite frankly, that you may have brought into the relationship, and then unpack those bags right in that relationship, and then your bags are full of dirty laundry. Sometimes it's like going from one vacation to a next vacation, and instead of washing your clothes and bringing them home, washing them and put them back in the bags, you just take them right into the next vacation. Well, that's kind of what it's like when you go into a marriage and you really haven't addressed the issues. Nobody wins. And quite frankly, if one person has to win in a marriage, the other person has to lose, you both lose. Because marriage is not a competition. It is a collaboration that requires commitment, compromise, good counsel, communication. It requires a whole lot. There is quite a few writings that I'm working on with regards to my books. I don't say book because I don't have just one book in me. I've got a lot of books in me. And so one of the books that I have in me, and I can't say the term right now, but it's going to be good. And it's going to really help out a lot, I think, for both marriages as well as for your relationships with your children. Hey, Tom just hopped on. Thanks for joining the show, and happy Father's Day again, Tom. Adir is on. Thanks for joining the show. If you're just hopping on, let me tell you what we're talking about, which I think is a hot topic. We are post-Father's Day. We're talking all month about transition, right? And what transitions change your life permanently. And the specific transition that we're talking about tonight on Mindful Mondays is divorce. What to do when divorce hits and it changes your life permanently, right? And oftentimes you can't figure it out post-divorce in order to find a way to be harmonious for the sake of your children, right? If you can't find a way, I implore, I in some ways beg you guys to try to do your best to step back from the emotional turmoil that you may be in and try to do, your due diligence to figure this out. Even if it means journaling. I say to people, journal, every client I've ever had, they have an assignment of journaling, because journaling can be cathartic. Sometimes we're so caught up in what's going on. We're so caught up in the emotional state that we're in. We're quite frankly so caught up in our pain that we can't see the forest for the trees. And we can't see that quite frankly, from as my perspective as a believer, that God has a way to turn that pain into power. It doesn't feel like it in the moment, but if you step back long enough to really evaluate what's happening, you really will have what it takes in order to move forward and in a healthy way, and forgive, which I think is paramount in order to move forward in a healthy way. And I want to talk about forgiveness. Dr. Gail says, and Antonio's on. My BFF Melissa just hopped on. Hey, Melissa, thanks for joining the show. Carmen's on. Donna's on. Again, Tom is on. Happy Father's Day to everyone. We're talking about divorce. Oh, KP. Hey, KP. Thanks for joining the show. Give me some smiley faces and some hearts and some thumbs up if you're on here and you're resonating with what we're talking about. I think it's a very, very important topic. Gail says, I think it's wonderful when fathers tell a child that her mother is wonderful and then tell her she did a great job as a mother to her daughter. Her husband has a daddy's day, and she has a mommy's day. They keep the parental boundaries very clear and with their daughter, and she's flourishing in every way. She is 10, and she 10 years old and excels in all aspects. Absolutely, that's the stellar. That is the stellar way that it's done. Is really to to not rag on your baby's mama or your baby's daddy. Not be disruptive or not be unkind with your terms, not engage in verbal and emotional violence. I really do want whoever's listening to check themselves, to do a self-evaluation. Ask yourself, are you that person? Have you ever engaged in emotional or verbal violence? Because we put a high premium on physical violence, which absolutely nobody should ever be putting their hands on anyone else, right? But I don't think we talk enough about the Jedi mind tricks that people play. Do you know what I mean? The Jedi mind tricks, meaning people who are manipulative, people are using their children as pawns when they're divorced, people who are making decisions or making choices to triangulate their children so that they are not able to engage with their both parents in an equal, in a healthy way. And when that happens, that is what I would consider to be emotional and sometimes verbal abuse. And sometimes, I would dare say all the time, it comes from pain. We do understand that. But if you're in pain, right? If you were in pain, like you had a migraine headache or you had chest pain, right? Because you thought you were having a heart attack, you would do what? You go to the emergency. And they do all kinds of tests, just like they did on my father last week. They do CT scans and x-rays and blood work to figure out what's going on and if there's a blockage or a bleed or if you're having a heart attack of any kind, right? So if you are in emotional pain because this transition has happened, you didn't see it coming, you're now signing divorce papers, you never intended for this to happen, you didn't walk out down the aisle thinking that you would be a divorced person, that is painful and is difficult. It is a difficult challenge to wrap your head around. However, I do think that as opposed to turning that pain into power and doing the necessary work to recover, because divorce sometimes is like a death, and in death, what we know is that there is a grieving process and there are the stages of grief. Sometimes you might be in denial, you might have anger, you might be in the bargaining stage, you might be depressed, or you might then get to a place of acceptance. And those particular grief stages, they are things that occur even in a divorce, but it is important that you don't have to go through that or grow through it by yourself. You can actually seek help so that you can be healthier in your recovery process from that, and quite frankly, so that you can go on and perhaps one day partner with the person that is a better fit for you if you've grown apart from your previous partner or it ended in divorce. Let's see who else is on. Tamara's on, Renee's on. Thanks for joining the show, guys. Tom is on as well. Yes, please share. Let your friends know that we're on. We're talking about the transition of divorce on the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. So STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. Tom said the worst pain is emotional trauma caused by using children as pawns when in a scoring stage of divorce. It is. You're absolutely right, Tom, and it doesn't have to be. There's lots of examples. I think I was watching the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith, and she was talking, I forget who was on her show that particular day, but it's a show with her daughter, and her mother. And she was talking about how it was difficult in the very beginning when she came on as the new wife, and her husband, Will Smith, had been previously married and had a son. And they really kind of worked through it. And I thought about that yesterday because both my sisters are divorced, my sister Kelly as well as my sister Kim. My sister Kelly remarried, my sister Kim did not. However, both my sister Kelly and my sister Kim have healthy, wonderful relationships with their previous husband or their ex-husband's spouses. And I've even seen in recent years pictures when we were in Arizona for my niece's graduation. Her father and his wife were there, and we all took pictures and we partied and had a great time and celebrated, and it was wonderful. And it's been that way since day one, since the first time that we met the girls, my niece's mother-in-law or stepmother. Same thing with my sister Kelly. You know, it's like you can do the right thing by your children. You can figure this out. And if you choose not to, here's the thing. Understand that there are always consequences. Consequences sometimes are that your children will grow up and they will realize that those Jedi mind tricks that you were playing, the ways in which you might have been manipulating the system, you know, or your children, or the ways in which your children were being triangulated, your children now have a power and voice of their own, and they are then able to realize what was happening, and oftentimes that could cost you your relationship with your children. And you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Jermaine is on. She says, I agree. Communication is key. And then Tamara says, I'm so blessed to be at a place where the kids are the main thing for my ex and I love it, love it, love it, you know, and I know that that is a journey to get there, but you stay on the journey. Don't abandon the journey, because there's always some wonderful things on the other side if you continue to pursue it and focus on the children and not on yourself or the pain. And Tom says, great show as usual. Want to do forward for the book. Okay, thank you. It sounds good. It's coming soon for sure. Sonia's on. Thanks for joining the show. So I want to. Oh, okay. The one that I read, the worst pain. That one, babe. Another. Oh, right before that one I read. Oh, I see, I see. So kids inevitably become adults and will ask why, and feel anger towards the parent who kept them away for no good reason. Absolutely. You know, I never want the children to feel anger. You know, I mean, anger is a normal emotion. We all feel it. It's not so much feeling it, it's kind of what we do with it and how we process it. And if you can definitely harness the anger and turn it into something positive if you have the skills to do so. It really just is unfortunate because, you know, if I could work with every child that was a product of a blended family or the product of a divorce, I absolutely would. Because I think that it is trauma, right? Think about it. Children, in order to be healthy, need consistency, they need structure, they need predictability. Those are three specific qualities in the atmosphere that we need to provide for children. And when we don't provide them with that, for whatever reason, and there is a rupture, right? There's some discourse and then there's some disruptiveness within the atmosphere of that system. And now parents aren't getting along and, okay, they move on to divorce, right? Those children, they're the ones oftentimes that don't feel this specific relief. Now, I know I said before, the children said they'd rather be from a broken home than living in one. And that is true when the relationship is very tumultuous. But when it's not, when perhaps you've done a fairly good job of keeping things out of earshot of your children and they didn't realize that things were as bad as they were, and then now finally they're hearing, oh my goodness, not only are you getting a divorce, but now we have to go from one household one week to another household the next week and make friends in different neighborhoods, and it's very disruptive to their lives. And you can do it in such a way to mitigate the fallout and the negative consequences to your children's well-being and their mental health status if you figure out how to work together. But if you don't, then I guarantee you your children are going to not reap the benefits of your inability to be healthy, quite frankly. Tom says, I finally reached the agape stage with the ex, and we are co-parenting with God's wisdom. Oh, that's wonderful. I love to see that. And, you know, the operative word there, which Tom said, and also Tamara mentioned as well, is finally, right? What finally means to me is that you get to a space where you're able to move forward, but it also means that it didn't happen overnight. So I want to implore to those that are listening to this message and this series, don't give up. Just because you wouldn't tell your kids to give up when their studies or whatever sporting activity or recreational activity they're involved in, you wouldn't say give up, right? Just because it's hard. You would say stay focused on it, keep working at it, you know, continue to pray about it, continue to get stronger, develop some grit into some determination and some fortitude and some will, right? You would say all those things to your children. So think about the mixed message that you're giving your children when you're saying one thing, because the audio then is not matching the video. So you're saying don't quit, don't give up. But then you choose for whatever reason, and it's maybe valid, that the relationship is not working out, but you think about the blessing of it when you can say to your children, we tried, we worked on it, we did the therapy, we tried to do anything and everything we possibly could to salvage this marriage, and we just couldn't. But that does not mean that we don't have work to do, and it doesn't mean that we are not responsible as co-parents to give you children everything that you need. Tamara says, a long time and much prayer, but worth it. It's still a journey, and I work at it constantly. Absolutely. Because it's what, Tamara? It's work. It's what, Tom? It's work, right? And too often people want to check out because they don't want to put up the work. They don't want to do the work. And by the way, if we went on a job and they gave us our task to do, we would do our task and we'd do the work, right? In this particular situation, the reason why going to therapy or having a spiritual advisor or a coach is so incredibly important is because the tasks that are required in the process, in the aftermath of divorce, when you have children, is completely different than perhaps any tasks that you've ever participated in. It means you have to engage with people you don't particularly care for. It means that you have to deal with all of your emotional turmoil about what didn't happen. You're in the stages of grief because this divorce is like a death, right? You're trying to untangle all of this and parent your children. There are a lot of things that you have to navigate in this new norm of yours. And it is important that you find a safe space to continue to process it, but also a space where people can help you to develop the skills to deal with it in a healthy way. Good evening, Ms. Trudy Jackson is on. Hey, Trudy, Ms. Trudy, thanks for joining. Deanna's on. Thanks for joining. Mary said, Argie the Sarge would not let me check out. Oh, I love it. Tamara, you're absolutely right. Argie the Sarge would not let you check out. I love it. I love it. And that is why therapy is so important. It is because, you know, sometimes, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, going to your friends. Beware. You cannot go to every friend. You cannot go to every family member to talk about the issues that are happening in your marriage, if it's intact or if even you're having challenges. Sometimes that will be the quick access point to it ending, you know, talking too much to the people who love you, right? But may not necessarily be quick to help you in that way. And also sometimes we tend to go to the wrong people. We may go to people who we think are our cheerleaders, right? These are people who we feel like they're going to be rah, rah, rah. But what about the people that check you? What about those? Sometimes you do need those people in your corner that check you before you wreck you, right? You say, you know, I mean, you know, there's the saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Okay, but this is somebody else checking you. And it really does need to be somebody that you trust, so that they're not checking you to hurt you. They're checking you to help you. They're telling you the truth so that you can move forward in a healthy way and not wreck your whole life and end up being bitter for the rest of your life versus better. Does that make sense, guys? I hope it does. Let's see. Kristen is on. Hey, Kristen. Thanks for joining the show tonight. For those of you who have just hopped on, Tamara made it aware to everyone that my nickname is Arge the Sarge. And it's a name that my family gave me years ago because, I don't know. Morgan said it's because I'm a bully. He says I'm an environment bully. I am kind of an environment bully. I am, like, you know, we're at home tonight, so we're in the living room, but that's because Morgan is a little bit messy. So we need to talk about, like, shared space. That was one thing that we needed to talk about more before we got married. Like, shared space is shared space. I want my space to look the way that it left. But when I left the house, I wanted to look the same way when I come back. I don't want shared space all over it. But that's for another series that we'll talk about that, you know, probably in September when everybody's trying to get their life organized. Tiffany's on. Hey, Tiffany, thanks for joining. Tanisha, I see you. Tamara's dying laughing. She's got all these smiley faces. And Donna says, divorce is the hardest situation to get through when the other person is extremely irrational and condescending. That was the toughest time for me in my life. I got through it with spiritual messages, church sermons, and music. Excellent. Stop talking about me being an environment bully on the I'm trying to have a conversation here. Pulling off the covers because you take the covers too. I'm trying to stay focused. Donna. So Donna talks about, you know, being in a relationship with someone who's irrational and condescending. And here's the thing. I do think, you know, that divorce is necessary for some people, especially if you find yourself in a relationship that's toxic, a relationship with a person who doesn't respect you, a relationship with a person who is not trying to lift you up and support you, but they're putting you down and speaking death, not life into you. That's not a good relationship to be in. And I don't think that is God's design for our lives, to be in relationships with someone who is basically abusive. Verbally, emotionally, mentally, you know, abusive, or any other way, physically or sexually abusive. So those relationships we have to get out of, and perhaps we did not see the signs before we got in, or maybe we did see the signs and we thought we could change them and got into those relationships and we found that they were not going to change. Because the truth is, guys, we don't have that much power to change people. We just simply do not. And so then we find ourselves in relationships that are not healthy. And by the way, if the relationship is toxic while you're in it, it's not likely that you're going to make a decision to move on with your life and divorce the person, and they're going to just overnight just have this metamorphosis transformation and be kind and loving and considerate and rational. Sometimes that takes work, and sometimes they never get to that place. And so then that's a conversation to have, because here's the deal, right? You have children. If you have children with that person, you hope that they can figure out a way to be a healthy parent versus because they couldn't figure out maybe how to be a healthy partner. But if they're really, really unhealthy and they haven't gotten help, then at that point you have to sort of discern, what do I need to do to make sure that my child is protected by simultaneously not cut off that child from the parent. So, you know, because that child did not ask. You can pick and choose your friends, but you don't pick and choose your family. So the child did not ask for that person to be their parent. You chose that for that child in terms of partnering with that parent. So it's going to require, I think, a lot of navigation and processing to move forward to a healthy place and make sure your children are protected in the process. Cynthia's on, Edward's on. Thanks for joining the show, guys. This is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series, and we are talking about divorce. All month we're talking about transitions that change our lives permanently, but tonight we're talking about divorce. And I decided to talk about divorce because, one, I thought that Father's Day does not get the credit it deserves. There are some awesome fathers out there, whether they're partnering with the moms or whether they're not. They still deserve to have a healthy relationship with their children, and they deserve for us to give them the shout out. I'm shouting out my dad for sure, and Morgan. Morgan has been a great dad. I've watched him be determined and focused and have fortitude to develop a strong relationship with his children, even when he was given resistance. He continues to stay in it and keep his eye on the prize. And for that, I love him and I'm so proud of him. And then for my father, well, listen, he did the darn thing. I mean, my dad had 4 girls and he did the darn thing. All his 4 girls, along with my mom, they were married for 60 years. Well, married for 58, together for 60. And he is just a man's man, right? He's having some health challenges. Please continue to pray for him. I ask you for your prayers for him. But he, even the other night, yesterday, when we were sitting on the swing, was telling me stories about, and I was saying, Dad, I so thank you for being such a great dad, for making sure that we all had everything we wanted, most of what we needed, and for being due diligent. And even when Morgan was sitting on the porch, he was talking about the fact that it wasn't easy as a police officer having to hold on to your emotions when people were treating you with racism and treating you unfairly, yet you needed to take a paycheck home, right? So you had to kind of hold on to your emotions that was overwhelming so that you didn't lose your job. So he did all of that for us. And he's not the only one. There's a lot of great dads out there. And it's a travesty oftentimes that for those dads who did not make it for, let's say, 30, 40, 50, 60 years with their spouse, and they ended up having a divorce, it's unfortunate that sometimes those dads aren't then not able to have the relationship that they are deserving of with their children, and vice versa. The children are deserving of those relationships with their dads. It happens too often. And we need to figure out a way. We need to figure out the skills, the tools, the techniques to be healthier. Women in particular, we need to figure out ways to be better versus bitter, so that we as women need to figure out how to be better versus bitter, because we have an awesome life to live too, right? And trust and believe, we can't live the awesome life that God has designed for us if we're filled with bitterness and hatred and dissension and pain, quite frankly, that keeps us bound with toxic emotions that that don't allow us to be healthy. So guess what? When we're not healthy, nobody's healthy, because we're creating unhealthy environments, and our children end up reaping the consequences of our unhealthy behavior. So tell me if that resonates with you guys. I want you to share. I do think that this is a topic that many of us need to really process. We need to journal about it. We need to sometimes go to therapy about it. Listen, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. It just isn't. Forgiveness is available to all of us. It just is. And if we embark on a journey of forgiveness, what we will find on the other side of that forgiveness, we will find freedom, right? Love, light, truth. I often say that love, light, truth, and accountability leads to hope and freedom. And truth, trust, and transparency leads to transformational breakthroughs. So, forgiveness is a huge part of that. And sometimes what we feel is that when we've been hurt by someone who left us or treated us badly or abandoned us or didn't want to be with us, and by the way, people do have the right to say, I don't want to be with you anymore. Sometimes that happens. We don't have to stay in relationships just because of loyalty, legacy, or longevity if we're not being treated well. I know. I'm Morgan's freaking out over here. That's true. It's okay. So Morgan wants me to repeat that statement. We don't have to stay in relationships due to loyalty, longevity, or legacy. We don't. I do think that sometimes we feel like, give me some thumbs up and smiley faces and hearts if you believe, if you buy into that, if you resonate with that. And what I mean by that, if I want to unpack that a little bit, is I saw this episode on Dr. Phil one time. And there was this woman, and this was many, many years ago. And it was this woman, she was talking about her relationship and how she missed the relationship. And Dr. Phil, he was very brilliant with this one. I see a lot of hearts. Thank you for the hearts. He was brilliant with this one because he said to the woman, he said, you don't miss what you had because based on what you said you had, it was pretty horrific. You had a person who was abusive to you, unkind to you, treated you with disrespect. So you don't remiss with that. And it seems to me that you stayed in that relationship because you were loyal to that person, or you felt like you had been in that relationship for so long that nobody else would want you, or there was some legacy about people don't divorce, or so you just figured you'd stay. But what you missed is what you wished you had, because you didn't have a healthy, loving, caring, authentic relationship. You had the exact opposite. So how could you miss that unless you're a masochist? So he said, well, you know what? Get to a place where you free yourself from even the pain of having to move on, so that you can then have the relationship that you want and stay in that relationship, because it's giving you everything that you desire and everything that you deserve. But too often we stay in relationships way past their expiration date, and we feel like, okay, well, because we're connected, and even I'm talking about people that we're connected to through biology. It could be even a parent sometimes that we're staying connected to. Even from a biblical perspective, the Bible says, children, parents provoke, or fathers provoke not their children to wrath, and the children need to obey their parents, and those kinds of things. But I don't think that God wants us to be in abusive relationships, even with people who are biologically connected to us, simply because we share bloodline. And too often sometimes, and parents can be guilty of this, especially moms, they can say things that are very horrific, and they feel like, well, I'm entitled because I'm your mother. I get to treat you like crap, or I get to talk to you any kind of way. No, you don't, sis. No, you don't. Now your child should continue to try to respect you to the best of their ability, but they don't have to stay around if they're now an adult, right? Simply because you share bloodline. So again, if anything comes out of this conversation, I want you to take with you, don't stay in abusive relationships simply because of loyalty, longevity, or legacy. You don't have to. Your responsibility is to be in a healthy relationship. And if you are unable to be in a healthy relationship because that person is either unwilling or not capable or unable, then you have to make some decisions for yourself and for your children that help you to be healthy. I hope that resonates with you guys. Let's see who else is on. Jermaine is still on. Carmen is on, and Ed. Hey, Ed. Thanks for joining the show. Carmen says yes. I totally agree. I too am blessed. KP. That's what I said. I said Carmen. I just said her first name. I totally agree. I too am blessed to have a great dad, regardless of what my parents went through. Our dad has always been in our life. And even after our parents divorced, our mom never blocked him from being in our life. Our village has always had an unbreakable bond. Divorce, let me see, I gotta move this up so I can see it. Divorce of any breakup in children is no joke. With God, maturity, focus, and a strong village, it can work. Absolutely, absolutely. It can, right? And, I give so much credit, so much affirmation, and so much confirmation to parents who are able to figure it out. One of my very dear friends, one of my best friends, KD, often talks about her parents and how her mother never talked bad after her parents' divorce, never talked bad about her father, even though it was a challenging relationship given how they transitioned. They transitioned into divorce, but she never talked bad about her, and as a result, my friend has a great relationship with her father as well as her mother. That can happen, but the opposite can also happen. If out of your hurt and your pain, out of your conflict with yourself, out of the spirit of unforgiveness, you then make a choice to attack, to have character, to embark on character assassination. You choose to be disruptive or negative or horrible with your words. Words matter. And oftentimes, all of those things can very much backfire on the person, whomever they are, down the line, either the parent, the mother, or the father. It definitely can backfire. Dads, matter. Moms matter. Children do not survive without you. They don't. They absolutely do not thrive without you. So I ask people to ask themselves when they're in battle, let's say, in the War of the Roses. Anybody ever see that movie, The War of the Roses? I ask people to ask themselves, if this were their last day, because tomorrow's not promised, would this be the way that I would want to end the last day of my life? Would this be it? Would it be arguing and fighting? Would it be being manipulative? Would it be using my children as a pawn? Would it be blocking access of my children to their other parent? Would that be what would be in the best interest on the last day that I'm here? Or would I be choosing, making a choice to live the best life that I possibly can, to love the people that I can love, to enjoy the people that are in my life, to nurture my children in the way that allows them to know and feel loved, and to embrace every single moment. There's a saying that I like to say that we can either count every day or make every day count. And making every day count has a lot to do with what we do in our actions. And our actions make the difference between if we are giving light and love, truth and accountability, that equals hope and freedom, or if we are speaking death into people, or if we are blocking people and subsequently maybe blocking our blessings. What are your thoughts about that? You know, it's Father's Day, or the day after Father's Day. This is why I chose to talk about this. And all this month, we are talking about transitions. Because guess what? We're all in a transition. Many of us, as I tend to say, are in the middle of a storm, moving out of a storm, or moving into a storm, right? And those storms, what storms happen, if you follow storms mean that they mean there's toxins in the atmosphere, and storms come through to clear the atmosphere, right? And so it's really kind of important that we pay attention to the storms that we're in, and we do the evaluation, the self-evaluation of what am I going to learn? What is there for me to learn? Because if we stop learning and we stay stuck in a holding pattern, we can't grow. And if we can't grow as adults, then our children, who we are fully responsible for, they are modeling their behavior after us, and their growth can be stifled as well. And I know that's not anybody's intent, but that is actually what happens. And so when you see children growing into adults and they're unable to get a job, they're unable to make their way in life, they're unable to achieve sufficiency, self-sufficiency, think back on whether or not their growth was stifled because somewhere along the line there was a trauma, maybe even a divorce, and then everyone in the system stopped growing. That's not a good thing. And if the growth means that you've got to talk to someone, if the growth means you've got to start reading some books or get on YouTube, do that. Do the necessary thing for you to learn what you need to learn in order for you to pass it on to the next generation. Because guess what? Our children are watching. They're paying attention to everything we do. And as I say, in our family of origin, it impacts us longer, more deeply, more frequently, and more powerfully than anything else in our lives. And because it impacts us, that subsequently has a lot to do with the types of relationships that we find ourselves in. So ask yourself, when your children are paying attention, because they are watching, do I want them to have the kind of relationship that I have now? Or if my relationship has moved on and I've gotten to a divorce, or I'm now on the other side of that, they're still watching. Do I want to send them that message or that teachable moment that we should stay stuck in our pain and never try to grow through it to the extent that we learn from it and we use it to our advantage? Remember, our history is not meant to define us. Our history is meant to inform us. So there are lessons learned in every single thing that we do. And those lessons we are needing those lessons to impart those lessons onto the next generation. Paul is on and Sharon's on. Thanks for joining the show. For if you guys have just hopped on, and Ed is on as well. If you just hopped on, this is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. We come on every Monday night, live, Mindful Mondays, and then we come on Wednesdays, WIOW, Work It Out Wednesdays. So what I ask for people to do is on Tuesday, which is Testimonial Tuesdays, if you watch this in the live feed you're watching now, or if you watch it in the archive feed, then come on board, give your testimonial about what we're talking about, which is transitions that changed our lives permanently, and specifically divorce, and how do I get to the other side of the divorce so that I don't use that divorce, and so I don't use my hurt and pain and my children as a pawn to hurt my ex-partner or my ex-wife or my ex-husband. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So Morgan reminded me, we always say the question to ask oneself is, are you helping to harm or healing the hurt? Which one is it? Because words matter and our actions matter. And when we're so embedded in our anger and our rage and our emotional state of pain, we cannot see the forest for the trees. And by the way, it's not cool to like get people like, you know, your parents or your siblings or your friends, if you will, to co-sign your bad behavior. That's not cool. You know, do the work so that you can really get healthy. And the healthier you, quite frankly, means a healthier community all the way around. A healthier you means a healthier home life. It means a healthier work life. It means a healthier friendship life. It means a healthier relationship with your children. All of that can emanate from you based on doing the necessary work to heal. Because quite frankly, you know, we have to feel in order to heal. So it means it requires that we talk about that pain. And if we don't heal, then we cannot heal. And quite frankly, we cannot heal what we don't reveal. So that means we got to talk this out. We got to process it out. We got to journal it out. We got to get people to help us through some difficult times in our lives so that we can be better. Again, not bitter. Tom says, my best advice, brothers and sisters, always take the high road when it comes to speaking about X in front of our kids. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Take the high road. However, Tom, easier said than done, right? Because you know, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? And even as those spiritual beings, when we're starting to have that human experience can bring out the worst in us. And when we feel like we've been wronged, what do we want to do? We want to hit back. We want to retaliate. We want to make that person, we want to exact some pain on that person because we felt pain. We want to trash them sometimes in front of other people. And none of it helps. It really doesn't. And quite frankly, sometimes what it looks like is you become more transparent to others when you're doing things like that because they're looking at you like, okay, you clearly aren't over this person. You clearly still have some issues going on that you need to resolve. And you clearly have not moved on. You know when people have moved on. You know how you know when people have moved on? When you get nothing. When people really truly have forgiven themselves and they've forgiven you and they want to live their best lives and they absolutely refuse to engage in the negative, toxic engagement. That's when you know they don't care. They really do care about living their best life and trying. Listen, guys, life is short. We are only here for a short period of time. We have birth, we have death, and we have the dash in between. The question is, what are you going to do with your dash? Are you going to spend it using children after divorce as a pawn? Are you going to spend it being bitter and angry? Are you going to spend it being mad, quite frankly? Or are you going to figure out how to be glad? Because every single day that we wake up and we are able to breathe, it is another opportunity to live our best life. It's up to us. Nobody can do it but us. We can sit on the sidelines and really, you know, be upset about our past or about who did what, when, where, how, and why. Or we can process it out and then we can figure out a way to grow through it and to move on. Tell me, give me some smiley faces, some thumbs up if that resonates with you guys. Remember, you know, we're going to put some more content out on YouTube. So look out for that content. You're going to see some of my old things that I've put out. You're going to see some new stuff. Remember on July 2nd? Yeah, July 2nd. Thank you for the smiley faces, thumbs up, and the hearts. I'm going to be on the Today Show on July 2nd talking about gaming addiction. So please tune in. I think it's in the 8 o'clock hour. Also, yeah, DVR it. That's correct. And also, if you check out our website, it's drargieconnects.com. give me a call if you know anyone that is interested in therapy. The interesting thing is, in the world of voicemail, you actually get a call directly from me if you're interested in therapy, right? That almost never happens, right? The doctor never calls you directly if you're not their patient. But if you call me at 215-789-6999, or my email address is drargie@connectionsmatterllc.com. Initially, you may get an intern that reaches out to you within 24 hours, and then that intern will pivot to me, say, Dr. Argie, someone's interested, I'll give you a call, find out what you need. If I cannot help you, I'm now committed, since I've talked to you, to try to get you to the right place, right? It doesn't help me to not help you, right? So my goal, my commitment is, if you get to me, I'm either going to be able to see you, or I'm going to make sure that you get to the right place. So check those things out. Look out for Reentry Point. That is coming soon. And we are Tickle Pink. We're going to be doing a casting call for our docuseries, Reentry Point. It's going to be awesome. I think everybody's going to be able to relate to it. And look out for my next books. And I say books because now that I have some free time and space to, get my creative juices flowing, I don't have one book in me. I got a lot of books in me. So I think there's going to be awesome, and I hope that you will continue to support. Hey, Envy's on. Envy, I was talking to you earlier. Aren't you supposed to be on a honeymoon or something like that? Envy just got married today. Well, she said it's not a wedding, so it was a garden party. I'm going to post some pictures a little bit later so you guys will see how beautiful Envy looked. We were all out in Bucks County in the park at a garden party with her and her handsome husband, now Free. And we had a great time. It was fun. I'm sorry that I had to leave early, so I had to go to work, Envy, but you looked absolutely beautiful. You were a beautiful bride. You're going to have an amazing marriage. And I believe that the best is just to come. You've been through a lot. We've been through a lot together, girl. And I am just so tickle pink and peacock proud to be your friend. And I am so happy for you and for your husband. I wish you peace, love, happiness, and serenity and in your journey. Aaliyah's on. Nikki's on. Thanks for joining the show. Bessie as well. Tijuana is on. Thanks for joining the show. Trent's on, my soror. Thanks for joining. And Lanzi is on as well. Let's see if I can go back. Something's going wrong. I can't go back. I thought somebody else had a comment. No, I think that was it. So for those of you who, came on late, we were talking about transitions that change our lives permanently, and we were talking about what do we do in the aftermath of divorce, specifically post Father's Day. And so tomorrow, please give your testimony. It's Testimonial Tuesdays, and ask me some more questions. If you have questions that you really want to find out about regarding blended families, regarding couples therapy or co-parenting therapy, please make those comments and ask those questions. And then WIOW, we're going to work it out on Work It Out Wednesdays. I'm going to send you some words of wisdom and thoughtful comments and something to empower you and inspire you and lift you up on Thoughtful Thursdays. And then we're going to have Freedom Fridays. All right? All right. I think that's pretty much it, guys. So listen, I hope this was helpful. I hope that you will pass this on. I hope that you will share this content. I think it's a really good topic. And comment on it as well. All right. Have a great night. Envy, have a wonderful, wonderful marriage, girl. We love you. And thanks, guys. My soror was on, Aaliyah as well. So you guys have a great night. I am Dr. Argie, your global relationship transformationalist, and I love you guys. There's nothing you can do about it. So have a beautiful night on purpose from my heart to yours. Love you guys.